Okay, awesome. And just confirm you can still see my screen, right?
Can see your screen, the
Yes.
slide.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft Exchange Community Technical Airlift today. I am Urja Gandhi, and I am a product manager on the Microsoft Defender for Office 365 team. Today, we'll be talking about this session called Combat Business Email Compromise using powerful integrated workflows with MDO, which is Microsoft Defender for Office 365. Um, so the agenda for today is we'll walk you through what is business email compromised attack and its evolution, and the AI-powered protection that we have in MDO against BEC, the techniques we see in BEC, and we'll show you some examples and also a demo of BEC detection and response handling. So with that, let's talk about business email compromise. According to the FBI, in 2019, BEC was the costliest type of cybercrime. And since 2016, BEC has accounted for more than $26 billion in losses. And over the years, we've observed many advanced flavors of the BEC attacks. A classic example or a classic attack or single stage attack is where attackers impersonate or spoof executives or business partners or IT HR staff and more. And here they leverage techniques such as domain impersonation, user impersonation, exact domain spoofing. And typically, the email can contain a basic request to purchase gift cards or a request HR or financial data, and then request to process an invoice with, let's say, updated payment information. Uh, and a more complex attack or a multi stage attack is where attackers basically leverage techniques such as credential phishing or a leaked password, and then compromise an account or multiple accounts. And then they set up forwarding rules on the victim's email account and monitor new emails from partners or vendors, typically those that involve a financial exchange. And then later, at a point when they see that trust is established, basically what they do is they wait for an opportunity for a significant transaction, and then they intervene using the same techniques such as impersonation or spoofing. And then finally, the attacker modifies the wire transaction or wire transfer and the details of the transaction and leads the victim to process a fake invoice. So furthermore, also FBI IC3 2021 report shows that some interesting evolution of BEC leveraging virtual meeting platforms such as Teams and collaboration tools happen for fraud via transactions, and then they immediately transfer to cryptocurrency and deep fakes. No further updates on that to cover in this session today. However, just something I wanted to bring up that we are also going to be looking into as we head into the future, and then collaborate with the Teams team and other groups within Microsoft to partner on. So no wonder BEC is a top of mind concern for CISOs. And so how do we protect against these attacks, right? Within MDO, MDO honors email authentication standards such as SPF, DKIM, DMARC when they are properly configured. If DMARC fails, the message is sent to junk or quarantine folder. And while DMARC standard is useful, as many of you might be aware, our telemetry suggests that it is not widely adopted. So what helps is our industry first technology called spoof intelligence, and this continuously learns about the domain's email sending patterns and then flags anomalies accordingly. Also within MDU, we have powerful impersonation detection for targeted user impersonation and domain impersonation. We have an AI powered technology called mailbox intelligence. This basically constantly learns and builds a communication graph for every user and automatically detects an anomaly. So one thing I'd like to call out here is a key difference between mailbox intelligence and the targeted user impersonation protection. is that mailbox intelligence learns the communication patterns, whereas the targeted one does not. So, for example, if you think about Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, he is not going to be on my frequent contacts list because I only get email from him very infrequently and I never respond anyway. So in this case, the list of targeted users that a security admin specifies, what it does is it says, regardless of what the system has learned, these users need to be protected. So they send to the entire organization, and the organization, and because of that nature, they are targeted often. So if you specify your CEO, CFO, HR, or even external board members, their impersonation will be flagged right away without any learning patterns. So, for which you need the targeted user impersonation protection. Whereas you also want to protect each individual recipient from impersonation of their manager or co workers, which can be learned using the mailbox intelligence. So, basically, both work together to provide this complete protection against the user impersonation. And on the account compromise front, as we move towards the next step in the multi stage attack, last year we rolled out a new option in the outbound spam policy that disables external forwarding by default. This policy has been retroactively applied to the existing Office 365 mailboxes to provide the same level of protection to new and existing accounts and block any compromised activity that may be occurring. Now, administrators can create additional policies for specific users to enable forwarding as needed. For those users that are allowed to forward outside your organization, an additional level of protection is provided through the detection of suspicious forwarding activity, alerting SecOps so they can further investigate and remediate the account and prevent any suspicious behavior. Now, in some cases, the admin may want to restrict or monitor how users are sending mail to be alerted, or restrict the user when they send outside of expected parameters. By configuring the outbound spam recipient limits, admins can monitor for abnormal behavior and take action if required, as an early warning that something suspicious is happening. And then further, the system also monitors outbound email for suspicious activity and can throttle and block an account and alert the SecOps team as needed. For MDO P2 customers, this includes running playbooks to analyze the user for further signs of compromise in order to streamline the remediation and discovery process. Oh, sorry. And then furthermore, for end user awareness, we have a variety of contextual tips and warnings that are natively integrated into Office clients. Towards the end of 2020, we launched a new safety tip based on first time contact signal between senders and recipients. This helps users self detect suspicious emails. So, for example, imagine being in the middle of an email chain with your business partner, and suddenly you receive this warning message saying you don't often get email from this XYZ sender. That is a strong indicator of a potential business email compromise attempt. And there are also other tips specifically telling you about user impersonation and domain impersonation. Um, we will also leave some information in the chat with all of this that I've covered so far for you folks to refer to later. But I'm not monitoring my chat, so if there are any questions, we'll take a few minutes and then I'll hand off to Tommy to cover back themes. Um, Anybody from the team, John or anyone, is there anything that stands out that we need to cover, or are we good to go with Tommy's section?
One question is on the threshold for the first contact safety tip. What triggers that?
Oh, sure. So, what is the threshold for the first contact safety tip? Well, unfortunately, it's something that we cannot share publicly. Even we don't mention in our public documentation because of the reasons that the attackers can abuse it. So the short answer basically is that for the first contact safety tip, there is a threshold, but the way it works is that the communication needs to be established back and forth between the sender and the recipient both. So both of them need to exchange a few emails, and I'll say a few emails back and forth for the relationship to be considered as established. And once the relationship is established, then the first contact safety tip will not show up anymore. And the reason is this, like it's also not to say that hey, the tip got stamped one time and then the next time you got the email from the same sender, the tip is not there, because that would be very easy for an attacker to figure out, right? Like, yeah, let me just send two emails, right? And then I can bypass the tip. So for that reason, it's not like, oh, it's a single email. There are a number of email exchanges that need to happen. Unfortunately, I cannot share the exact threshold or the numbers or the details, but I'll leave you off with that. Thank you.
Thanks. And then there's another one of third party providing a report on the tenant being vulnerable to BEC. And I think the comment is that since phishing policy is activated, they're wondering how do you make sure policy's working, BEC is being prevented and stuff like that. What are the key things they should be looking for in the tenant setup, I guess? Is the way.
Oh, yeah, I guess maybe we should wait for Daniel's section. So we have a demo and then we have certain recommendations within the policies. So we'll probably hold off that question, and then if it doesn't get answered, then please come back and we'll try to answer that again.
Yep.
Yep. I think with that, yeah, I'll hand off to Tommy. Thank you, everyone. Tommy, let me know.
Thanks, Urja. I'll request control real quick.
Sure.
Thanks everybody else for joining. I really appreciate your time to join us here today. My name is Tommy Blizard. I lead our research and response team for MDO. And I wanted to share a little bit more generalized information. We talk about BEC, certainly talked about some of the product protections, and we'll run through an example after I'm done sharing some content here. But just wanted to share a little bit more, certainly better aligned with the industry as well as kind of what types of BEC style attacks do we see today, and how do we kind of classify those, and what are the things that we're keeping an eye out for on the inbound perspective that we're seeing coming in. So this hopes to share some more details there with you all. If I can get this to advance. Okay, the first major theme that we see, and this, I'll share some data on the next slide, but this by far and away makes up the most prevalent and common of the BEC style attacks that we see, which are around lures, and most of these are pretty open-ended style mails. Urja already mentioned a lot around our protection stack and how we leverage and consider impersonation a key component to business email compromise attacks. And that's certainly an aspect that will stand out in all of these different examples that we show, where people are trying to take advantage of established either business relationships or personal relationships, or things like conferences like this one, where they just met somebody potentially new at a new partner organization or otherwise, to try and gain attention or move a conversation off to a different format or function. Lots of different open-ended ways that we see these things emerge. And a lot of times these will end up turning into other types of BEC attacks down the road, but this is also kind of highlights some of the differences around why it's important for, first contact versus our established communication channels, and how those play into the way that we, try and protect against some of these outreach-based attacks. This one in particular was sent from a Gmail address, but we certainly obviously also see them create their own attacker infrastructure that's specific to them, or even impersonate domains that are very similar to partners that are working with companies like yours along the way in different formats. So still always interesting to watch and see the kind of the ways that we see impersonation take place into the different formats and examples that we have. The next example is also gift cards. Gift cards have been real common of late, certainly over the last 6 months or more, maybe even a year or so, that we've been tracking these individually. A lot of these claim that, hey, I'm essentially here, need your help with something. very lure oriented where it started. And then if they get acknowledgement and receipt, hey, I'm sick, I need your help with, getting some gift card, I'll pay you for it. If you can send it to me, I need it for my son and I can't do it myself. Scenarios like that are certainly very common in this type of scenario, and you can see different examples of essentially the attacker domain impersonating yahoo.com in this particular example. And usually they're also impersonating some type of friend or existing relationship they have with the person they're sending to. Next major example we have is around invoice-related BEC attacks. These are, we'll have some more data here as well on these, but these are generally targeted specifically around, paying a specific bill. There's usually always very strong urgency tied to these scenarios. You'll see impersonation also with titles of authority and people that might be trying to reach out to finance departments to get them to move on something. But often, like for instance, in this example, they're coming from either an abusive iCloud account or a different type of, implementation than would be expected from the vice president at any company trying to reach out to these folks. The next category that we track is around business information gathering. So this one is slightly different, and usually they're trying to collect some information about a company, maybe potentially trying to harvest additional folks that they can target, trying to find additional email addresses inside the company, for example, maybe in a specific type of business unit where they might be able to be more successful. But again, you'll still see strong alineations with people of importance or people with authority that are asking individuals to share information that they may be privy to more broadly so that they can take advantage of these. Again, usually there's a clear delineation in the way that the accounts are actually created. The domains they're sending from, whether or not they pass authentication is usually also a good check, as we talked about briefly before, but don't follow in line with some of the traditional patterns that you're used to seeing. Of course, this can also happen post-compromise, where it could be even internal mails in some of those scenarios, which is an example that we'll share more on shortly as well. Next major theme is around payroll redirect. So I've also seen these types of payroll redirects take place within contracts as well. So if company just set up a new contract with some other agency and you're seeing impersonation of that agency requesting adjustments of account information as well, some of those can align well with this type of attack too. Where they're impersonating essentially an employee or somebody that has relationship with somebody that can control where the money gets routed and trying to make a change to that routing to commit the fraud and the abuse. The next one is money transfers. These are also a little bit more kind of similar to payroll redirects, but are usually just tied to something that's already scheduled or planned as a wire transfer. Usually these are about known or existing entities that they're getting together, or they already have some type of inside information about the scenario that's taking place, and the way that they kind of can put the pieces together and request status updates. Very often in these types of examples, same with the last one, there's some request around acknowledgement or timeline expectations to be able to understand when they should see these things come through. And you'll still see continued, impersonation along with the friendly names that don't align with necessarily the email address themselves or aligned with some relationship between the two entities. The last major category is around extortion. The most prevalent of these is more spam oriented, but aligns with kind of the industry standard around tracking these types of attacks, where largely they feel like they have some control or some blackmail a type of leverage over the person receiving the mail that they make threats for and try and get you to wire money to them. There are some of these that are certainly lower in volume that are more egregious that we try and focus most of our research on today's around where they're trying to extort a company rather than an individual, which is more directly aligned with the work that we're trying to protect against in the MDO space explicitly, and are certainly more targeted in nature than some of the wider scale spam style extortion mails that just can get sent out broadly and may apply to all kinds of individuals and impact them all differently. Okay, so this aims again just to try and give you some scenarios and some examples about the way we think about BEC attacks on inbound and the way that we categorize them. Just to share a little bit of data around them and some of the insights that we see more recently for them. Again, BEC lure and just kind of the open-ended, natural, one sentence, one-liner mails make up over 50% of all of the BEC-related mails that we see today. And just to give you a general scope, we see over 200 million high confidence phish emails per month that we're currently blocking and protecting against in MDO. And the BEC mails that we see related to this account for less than 1% of that total volume. So while there's certainly a lot of mail that's happening in this space as a whole, it is certainly not a large portion of the overall attack space when it comes to phishing or some of the high-end email related crimes. But as Urja mentioned, is disproportionately impactful within the financial realm and the monetary impact that this type of attack causes to folks. Like I said, with Lure in particular, we've also been able to identify that, most recently these things come and go. You'll see ebbs and flows in the traffic, all of these different themes on a day-to-day basis with these charts. You'll see dips on weekends that align more closely with people when they're actually checking their email and the way that the sending patterns normally emerge in general, which is always fascinating to see. And we'll see periodic portions of time where we see increases in behavior or activity in different cadences depending. For instance, with Lure, we've been experiencing a bit more of those mails over the course of the last month or so than we have been for most of the summer. But it seems to be, at least for the last couple quarters, we've had a quarterly rise for about 3 or 4 weeks out of that quarter where it drops back down to lower volumes. An invoice-related theme. These have largely been targeted towards technology and higher education industries most recently. They tend to also be somewhat periodic, meaning they come in when you would expect to see invoices billed to most customers towards the middle or towards the end of the month, which also follows in with payroll-related redirect requests as well, which very closely correlate. Honestly, we see spikes almost every 2 weeks specifically around this type of theme, where it's trying to get people to redirect right during their payroll period to make those adjustments. Invoice has been primarily seen targeting technology and higher education most recently, with payroll focusing mostly on the real estate industry in most recent times. All right, with that, I will certainly look to the chat to answer any other questions that you folks have and try and turn it over to Daniel to take us into the post-breach stuff.
Thanks, Urja. Well, share my screen because we prepared some in-product parts of this next period of the session. My name is Danny. I'm working in the Defender for Office 365 customer experience team, and what we plan for today is to go through a little bit more complex BAC attack, where we crafted a little kill chain targeting one of our tenants, which we named company A, and trying to do a 2-stage attack and show you how can you do detection and response on the secondary operations side. So this is not focusing on the protection side. This is focusing on when things get delivered, users interacting with malicious content, give away credentials, what type of activity typically can happen. And it's go across multiple workloads. It's not just purely email related, but initial access is quite heavily focusing on email still. So we see a lot of phish, like pretty much everybody, and occasionally some go through for various reasons. The attack goal is to do a financial type of BAC attack. So try to compromise accounts in company A, do information gathering, do lateral movement, get to a point when we have enough information gathered from communication when there is that financial moment happening, and create an invoice, which is actually a real invoice, just modifying some of the properties like financial information, bank account numbers, and then targeting company B with a very well crafted email, which is coming in the same pattern like usually and has the same type of invoice file, but not with the attacker invoice details. What we do in this attack is to show you like how across the kill chain, different part of Microsoft Defender, including MDO, is raising you visibility through alerts and detections, and how do you handle them, how do you operationalize them, but also how the system use automation to give you an impact assessment, like how automated investigations are working in the context of a kill chain like this. What's the usefulness of this, where the system can auto take action on some of the emails and remove that from user mailboxes, when there is need to be a security operational person to still have a look and clean up things, but also like what is the kind of visibility you have outside a little bit of MDO, like when actions like downloading files happen from user OneDrive or sharing externally with anonymized links to get the state persistent. That's kind of the focus for today. We will start, and I'm switching over in a second. We will start from where we think all security operational team members should start. When you're investigating this type of attacks as well, the starting point in our view should be Microsoft Defender incident queue. The reason why, because Defender for Office 365 is natively integrated here. So the system generates alerts, our investigations are firing, they will be part of Defender incident. And this is a great way to get visibility most of the part of the kill chain, and not just from the email focused angle, but if there is other things happening as well. These can generate alerts in the system, and these alerts can come together in an entity we call incident. Attack will go through various stages and impact different workloads. A security operational person or responder should see most of these activities. So if you remember the kill chain, there was quite a bit of actions happening. What we recommend customers to do, like how to work with. Incident queue also helpful because you have queue management here. So there's a lot of incident in these tunnels happening already, but you can use this page to filter down. And what I see team members from security responders are doing some filters to get the focus instantly. So probably don't want to see things which get resolved or things with lower priority when you're starting your day, but you want to see the ones which is high impactful. So I just did a quick filter on this queue based on interesting on high and medium activity. The other things I see security operational personnel use to focus on the incident, which has high number of alerts. There's a higher chance there is something going on, which has multiple steps and things are related, so it's required my attention. The kill chain we were running is generated the second incident. So what we will do here is to help other team members in the team, we will just start working with this. One of the third things you can do is just take it out to your name. Also set it the status so others know this is in works, and just make a little comment, maybe starting investigation. Okay. So other team members can see like, hey, this is actually taken care of by somebody, and we can start looking at like what's happening here. So if you open the incident, you end up in a summary page, which the design for this is to show you like at a glance, like what's impacted, what's the story, how many alerts we fired, what's the severity, when it started, when was the last activity. So if you remember the kill chain, what we do really here is trying to target multiple users in company A with a normal fish, hoping then one of the users will click on the malicious URL and give away credentials. The initial access email is also crafty in this attack. So we use techniques here like delayed weaponization. We count on overrides information or sending through a trusted infrastructure, and we wait for the user click to weaponize that URL. So when the email is sent in, actually the URL is pointing to benign content. We trying to use these techniques to increase our chance email is get delivered, so we can have some users interacting with it and give away credentials. But we can see that the incident actually painting this picture, like there was devices involved here, that actions happened, then there's multiple users involved, and you will see as the story unfold what happened all of this. Okay, so that's kind of like the overall picture. When you are in the investigation phase of an incident like this, most of your time probably will spend on the alert tab of an incident. This is designed to give you like the story of the kill chain, how things happened after time to time, and how the system detected and what was the system reactions here. So if you remember, we sent in emails, users click on it, all of these activities firing alerts across the service. And Defender for Office 365, one of them, endpoint cloud ops, depending what workloads use, all this can generate alerts, and the system is all automatically correlate them. If you're interested, like what was the reason why these alerts are linked together, you can see the link by reason either here, just hover over, or you can see it on the alert summary or on the details page. So you can see that there is multiple reasons why these alerts with things are connected. So this is fully automatic. You don't need to write your correlation rule. This is one of the benefits. The system do the correlation for you based on similar IP, same user credentials in a case of email, similar email body, or the same email body, all this correlated together. There's other actions the users can take, which will give you visibility. For example, in our kill chain in the initial access bar, we targeted multiple users. And what happened here, if you take a look on the incident alert story, one of the users clicked, so there is some potential malicious URL click alert fire because the URL is not malicious when the user clicked, but there is some users reported as well. So that's one of the workflow Defender for Office is help you to investigate. When a user used the report phishing Gandhi to report phish, these are generating alerts, these are generating investigations, and these are automatically correlated if there is something to link it to. Okay, but of course the system also have the capability, if you disagree with the correlation of the alerts, you can move alerts out from incidents or join them. So if you disagree any of these alerts is related to this attack, you can use the functionality to link this to another incident or create a new incident based on that. Or you see another alert which has got not correlated by the automation, you can link it to the incident. So you can kind of enrich the attack story if you find things which is not bring together by the system. Okay, so that's one of the things. The other things I wanted to show, there's details in the alert pages. So if you, for example, have a look on this alert, which is about there is a forwarding rule created in the system, you can get more information. This is a Defender for Cloud Ops alert about the fact like there was some inbox rule created. The alert evidence will tell you, okay, when is this happened, from where, and the details of the rule. So this rule is not actually forwarding in this attack emails outside of the mailbox, but trying to do a little bit of hiding the attacker activity. It's very typical for a BAC attack. The attacker, when compromise a mailbox, try to set up inbox rules to hide their activity, to move messages around, to deleted items folder, out from the sent item, out from the inbox to places where the users probably not see. This is to hide if they start sending emails to partners. Okay, so that's all that evidences and all details can give you this information, and you can go and go and deeper look in the activity logs what's happened. The other thing I wanted to explain, some of these alerts is triggering in a Defender for Office side automated investigation playbooks. One of them was the user report malware or phish. The other one, if there is a URL click, potential malicious URL click happening. So when the user is clicking on a URL, the click is allowed, but the detonation happens after the click came back with evidence. No, this is a malicious URL. The user potentially get exposed to that content. So we trigger investigations to see is there anything suspicious happened with the account and similar emails. We'll go through like what an investigation playbook does in a second. But we fire investigations automatically for even events when the system automatically remove messages. So what happened in this case, you will see in the kill chain, we targeted multiple users. There was one user click giveaway credentials, but because at the time of click, there was a malicious verdict coming back, the system start automatically removing messages from user mailboxes. There's a feature in Defender for Office called 0-hour auto purge, and this can clean up emails. You will see it in a second. We will have a closer look on some of this messaging explorer. Even the one user is interacted, the other three not reported, the system start cleaning up the messages. The reason why even in this case we firing investigation playbooks is to do a wider impact assessment, like identifying a blast radius. Like, okay, but questions usually raised by a security analyst when you're investigating an attack like this: was there any similar emails in the past? Was there anybody else clicked on the URL? Are any of those similar emails are still in user mailboxes? Are they still malicious? That's where our investigations comes in, and based on some of these alerts, it's firing predefined steps of investigations done by the system for you. And the end of the investigation, if there is still malicious entities, emails, or configuration like inbox rules, or we have evidence the user potentially compromised, we recommend you actions to take, and we queue those actions per investigation, so you can take them. Benefit of incidents here, it's bringing all these investigations and all of their data together into one entity. So in this attack, there is like multiple investigation playbooks fired over time, and all the evidence is coming together on this incident. And we will mark the one where we found something which you still require your attention. Okay, like for example, this one is found some email messages we still need to be look at. Maybe we open some of them so I can show you like how an investigation playbook works, what type of actions an investigation does, and where these pending actions you will see in the correlated incident evidence tab coming from. Okay, so this is not something new. Defender for Office 365 does it since long, but it get integrated to the same concept what we have for other workloads, and it's surfaced in incidents. And we will continue to invest in this, so you will see it will be more tightly integrated in the future. Okay, so what we see here, this numeric change generated the alert. There's one user impacted. Usually this is the one who clicked, and then there is a series of steps happened by the system looking for malicious activities and more malicious emails. And if we find something, we'll just start queuing that up. Okay, so there is pending actions here to delete some emails. Pending actions, this is a change I think we did last year. John was leading that work. We only show pending actions for things which is still in the user mailbox and have malicious threats, high confidence fish malware threats. Okay, so that's the queue pending action. And either you approve this action which was found by the investigation here in the ad investigation page, or you can also do this on the incident level as well. All these investigations and their pending actions are bring together as an evidence, and you can just take action straight away from here as well. So you can start, like looking at like what's require my attention, like what's still have a pending action, and I can do the same action from this page as well, similar like on the underlying investigation page. There's other type of investigations which can run by system alerts, but also can be triggered by SOC analyst. So there's a feature in Explorer where you can trigger automated investigation playbooks on pretty much any email, which is you think is like interesting. Like if you want to, for example, I show you an email message here. If you want to investigate the message itself, or you want to investigate the sender or the recipient, if it's an internal email to see like maybe I suspect they are compromised, you can take that like selecting the email and then trigger investigation. This will investigate the email. This will investigate the sender and the recipient. If it's internal, it's running slightly different playbooks, hunting for is these entities are compromised or not. Okay, those investigations, if they are related to an ongoing incident, will be automatically correlated here. So if you take a look on this page, like you see, I triggered 2 manual user compromise investigation, and they automatically bring with their findings to the same story. These are firing alerts as well, and so you will see them like, okay, the admin triggered 2 investigation when it's happened, and when it's get actually joined, and why it's get joined to this incident. Some of the actions which are found by the underlying investigation can be related to mailbox configuration as well. So you can just disable inbox rules here. We found that inbox rule, if you're looking back on the kill chain, one of the steps we do even after the first user click early in the kill chain is to create an inbox rule to hide that attacker presence in the mailbox. This can be found by an investigation or an MD alert, and then it's coming together as an evidence, and you can take an action directly from there. You can also just fall back to use PowerShell to remove the inbox rule if on the action side if it's needed. But there was other actions here which is will be surfaced. And if there is enough evidence by the investigation, we suspect the user account might be compromised, we recommend you actions to just reset the user password alongst the email related ones. Okay, so this is how investigations looks like in a context of an incident, and how other actions can be surfaced. So you can get a quite accurate picture of a multi-stage, even BAC attack like this. Some of the alerts I wanted to highlight is we call it chain event detections. This is coming from Microsoft Defender level. For example, there was this event of like there's a malicious URL click happened, so user was exposed to a URL which we know it's bad now based on a delay signal, and this was an email which we zapped. So that's kind of creating this chain event detection type of alerts, which is merging the two things together or enriching the signals. Like one of the activity in the attack was one of the URLs which now have a malicious signal we detected is actually get posted in a Teams chat. Okay, so that's also coming from a Defender level alert. We will have a look in a second as soon as this loads to how that looked like and what's the evidence there. Or if you remember the kill chain, we try after we compromise the initial user Daniel, we try to move laterally within the organization. There is a chance to extend presence is higher when you already have an account in an environment. So I start targeting managers, other colleagues in the environment to get their credentials too. In this example, we actually really go after CAM emails and CAM files because he is the one who is sending the invoices to the target organization. So it's one way to do that. I try to sending him email, which is looking very legitimate, and try to harvest credentials to do that. We have this type of detections as well on the Defender level. So how this works, I will show an example of that. Because at the end of the lateral movement, can also click on the URL, and we also play this trick of like we weaponize the URL after email delivery. Those alerts get correlated back like, hey, by the way, there is a URL click happened. User was allowed to see no malicious URL, but the email was coming from an internal sender. So we can chain these informations together to paint you a more accurate picture on the alert story or the incident story. And I promised I show you also the step we did in a kill chain. Of course, I will move out when I'm in an organization, not just using the channel email. I can start circulating my content or malicious URLs using Teams. And this is again how we kind of correlate automatically in the system these signals. There was a potential malicious URL click alert find by MDO, and then the Defender level alert. Okay, actually found it the same URL in a Teams message posted. Okay, and we can link these two together because it's happened from same user credential, same URL. It's automatically happening, and then you get visibility as well on that side of the attack. Okay, when the attacker is trying to move lateral in the organization. One thing I wanted to also highlight: what happens if you're investigating an attack like this, but you don't find one step in the alert. So you can pivot to hunting tools and activity logs to find suspicious activity, and you can actually create your own alerts. So one way to do this is using advanced hunting. A lot of the data what you see in our experiences are also exposed using advanced hunting tables, and you can use a query language, but also this is something new. You can use a query builder. This is what released recently, and Defender for Office tables are part of this. So you can build up your queries and find more things. So one example I wanted to show, what if I not finding things which I think suspicious and related to the incident? You can use the CloudUp events table. There is a lot of activity which is done by users in Office 365 on OneDrive, on SharePoint. Exchange Online is actually logged by Microsoft Defender for CloudUps, and the trail is present in these tables. So you can use the KQL query to hunt for suspicious activity. What I did here is just simply very simple query. Look for the user. What was the activity in the last couple of days? Anything stand out here? And just, sometimes we visualize like, okay, there's a bunch of file load events here. Maybe it's related. This is around the time like I see the incident is happening. I don't see an alert about that, but this is interesting. Okay, we can dig a bit deeper and see information like, okay, there is files downloaded from the user OneDrive here. Pretty much very high volume, very short period of time. This can be suspicious. Okay, there was no alert, but you can select these activities and then link it to an incident. So the functionality is out there since for a while. What will happen here? You can create a new incident based on what you found, or you can just link it to an existing one. So if we remember the incident ID, I think it's 69 here. We can just say, okay, I found a bunch of other things. I think it's related. Let's link it to this incident which I'm investigating, and it will edit these activities as an alert. And the alert evidence will be the log entries I selected here. Is for example, this can be a mass download of the files from the user OneDrive. Okay, but if we scroll down, you can see some other activities as well, like sharing, files using anonymous sharing links. That's a typical good way to stay persistent. Okay, so it's you kick me out from an environment, but hey, I have access to every file because I have a link which doesn't require authentication, and I see the same files. So I can, if I don't have an account in company A, I can still use traditional techniques like spoofing and impersonation to still target company B because I have the content which I want to use in this attack. So this also can be just selected and added to the incident. Okay, so I see there's a lot of questions in the chat. I let my colleagues to answer it. I thought also I will show you like what if you would like to dig a little bit deeper in some of the emails when it's coming to, okay, there's this incident, there's a lot of steps. I did some actions, clean up some emails, but I want to see, okay, what happened with that initial access email? So we start building out integration points back to MDO experiences from incidents. So you can go and see email details. That one easy way to see, okay, what emails was involved in this incident is just coming to the email type of evidences here. And if you remember, or if you just want to go one by one, you can start looking at that email, which was targeting initial access. In this case, we targeted Danielle. So that was the individual email, and you can start getting information from it. Okay, so interesting things here. The email looks like first went to the junk email folder, and that get to quarantined. Maybe I want to look and understand why. So you can pivot directly from here to the email entity page, and that will give you this 360 view of this individual email message going to this recipient, Danielle. So useful thing is, okay, what happened here timeline wise? So it paints you a picture for this message. Okay, so the email was delivered to junk, but later there we see some URL clicks, and this is where we played the attacker played the trick of during delivery URL was redirecting to non-malicious site like Bing or something, but later it gets showing Office-Certified Credential Harvest page. So when the user clicked, the user was allowed, but there was a detonation and the signal came back as malicious. So then we start auto healing. Right? Like there is this ZAP event logged here, and you also see some of the other users actually reported this email as phish. I think Cam mentioned, my colleague, like to call this out. Actually, this type of attacks, if users educated to report suspicious emails hitting their mailboxes correctly, can be stopped. So if the users reported messages happens before the user clicks, emails get zapped automatically, because user reported messages can also trigger alerts and other investigations, which is doing another check of the messages. So we will have the malicious signal because of the user reported it. So we just pull out the email from everybody mailbox where we can with zero auto purge. Okay, so that's an interesting one. So users are usually still looking at emails in the junk folder. The other interesting things you can see if you want to learn, like, why do we think this email is actually no malicious? Which is the URL which the system thinks is bad? Because what you see here is coming a phish verdict with high confidence with the detonation reputation. you can see that on the URL tab, the IOCs are listed here. And if you click on the URL, this is, I think, something important I have to say, because some security team members are usually afraid. If I click on the URL, it's not browsing the URL, it's not opening the fish site. What it does, if there is a detonation happened in your environment, we show the details of the detonation, and you can take some of this data out for offline analysis. But you can understand, like, why do we think this URL is bad? We think this URL is fish because our machine learning analyzed during detonation what the end of the URL, and it looks like an Office 365 team credential harvest page. Okay, this includes the screenshots as well, if you were able to capture one, so you can have a look like, okay, this is what was happening when the URL was actually sandboxed, detonated. This is what was at the end of it. Okay, so now I can be more suspicious, like, okay, probably this user gave away credentials here, because in the incident we see all sorts of activities happened after that. Okay, and some of that's happened from Tor IP addresses. You see all those alerts as well. So this is a time to kick in the gears to action to, okay, treat this user as compromised and start taking back the account. Okay, so that's how you can kind of drill into one individual email. The other thing I wanted to kind of call out here is there's some features we recently released around this experience. One of these I think can be useful when you investigate email messages is this preview. This is also available if the email is still in an inbox of a user, but you can also see it if it's in the quarantine. So if you want to say, okay, system says it's bad, URL is bad, how the email message look like? So you can just render the preview here, and then it will load the message, and you can see that, like, okay, that was the individual message. What I'm investigating, this is how it looked like. Okay, this can, again, sometimes checking with your eyes can give you more confidence. This is bad or good. Tommy also showed some examples for this. On the action side, this is also new things we exposed recently. Actions on email, you can do on multiple places. You can approve their investigation for group of emails or for individual emails. But if you are already down on an email entity page, you can also just take remediation actions straight away from here. So this is a new functionality. You can pretty much take the same actions what you can do from Threat Explorer. So moving the message from inbox to delete item, soft delete. But also one of the work we are continues to invest in is to help security operational people to do more. So most of the time, you not just want to clean up the email, but you also probably want to report it to Microsoft if it's a false positive or false negative, or add blocking the sender. So block IOCs, senders, URLs, attachments. And we'll keep extending it. Right now it's sender and sender domain, but more will come in the future. We plan to invest in this area. Or you can trigger investigation. If there was no investigation, finding this email, what you're investigating, you can just trigger your own, and it will run that playbook for you to find more emails, which is familiar. Okay, I think that was the majority of the things I wanted to share. So please do use Advanced Hunting heavily. It's a very useful tool to go deep dive, and you can. One of the benefits. This data can be connected in the query language, so you can hunt across email, cloud apps, device related data using just one, because the schema is exposed in this query editor. URL click events are there now for Defender for Office, so that's another useful table to use when you hunt, and you can add URL click evidences to your incidents using the link to incidents functionality. The URL click events is just all clicks when safe links is enabled. Doesn't matter if it's happened in email, Teams, or Office. All is logged here with details like who clicked when, what was the IP address, and what was the verdict at the time of click, and was it allowed or not. You can use this to enrich incidents, or just start diving down to more deep details what happened on the device, for example. Okay, so that's another example where information here can be used during investigations. We prepared in the slide deck some actions we recommend to take when security team members are investigating and responding to business email compromise. Some of these actions you can already take directly from incidents, cleaning up emails, removing inbox rules, configurations, sometimes resetting password. But there is more to it, so we recommend to also have a think about tokens, not just password reset, revoke active sessions. So make sure there is no token compromise or abuse happening. Look for devices which was joined during the attacker has access to the compromised account. If there is no requirement to use MFA to join a device to the organization, then this can be used to fulfill second factor authentication requirements. So that's a technique we've seen used heavily recently. And also look for sent emails, not just inbound emails. When you're looking for business email compromise attacks are low volume and trying to trick users. So it's worth to have a look on the outbound send. Was there an email sent outside from the mailbox when the account was compromised, and what was the content of the email? Maybe if we have 1 minute, I will show you like how can you actually get this information, some of the information about the email from the Cloud Apps events table. And MFA, we told it multiple times, make sure MFA is implemented widely in the organization and required for new device registration too as well. To show you an example of like the end of our kill chain, if you remember, we wanted to send that email, which is financial information. You can see the audit trail for this as well. So if you're investigating this type of activities, you can see, for example, here there was a file download. Like it was quite a few times after actually all the suspicious activity happened, but the file download event happened from an anonymized proxy. So this is probably Tor network. Then we see a file upload. Maybe the file was changed. Then we see an exchange online. There was an email create and an email send. So if you want to investigating what happened here, you can always go to more details and have a look. So this is a file which is invoice with a file name, and then there's a variation of that uploaded, all from a Tor network. This is probably an attacker activity, and then there is an email send, and you can see the details of the message. What was the subject? What was the file attached to it? So you can kind of piece the things together and attach to the incident, so you have evidence about the email send as well. Okay, I think we are close to get to the end of our time. We'll pause here. We'll have a look on the chat if there is any questions which not get answered.
Yeah, we are over time actually, Daniel.
Okay, sorry for that.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah, I would say, thanks everyone, and thank you especially for staying a bit over time. Great questions and comments in the chat as well. I'm sure we all couldn't get to every one of them, but I hope you all found this session helpful, and also hope that you enjoy the remaining of the MEC sessions. Thank you.